I suddenly opened my eyes, the pungent smell of disinfectant instantly replaced by the faint mustiness of an old wooden bed. The beeping of the heart monitor was gone, replaced by the familiar chirping of sparrows outside the window. This is, trembling hands reached for my face. No tubes, no wrinkles. I rolled out of bed, my legs moving with an agility that felt unreal, and rushed to the mirror on the dresser. There I was, 20 years old, the calendar on the wall clearly showed, June 18th. 1985, marriage report, I muttered to myself, suddenly feeling as if struck by lightning. This was 3 days before my engagement to Enzo Song, and the starting point of my tragic life. Memories came flooding back like a tide. In my past life, I married Enzo Song but lived like a slave, my sickly father, blind mother, and a frail daughter. The burden of the entire family fell on my shoulders alone, and Enzo Song, under the pretense of caring for his comrade's widow. He spent his whole life fawning over Isla Lin. The most painful part, the daughter I raised through hardship and toil ended up pulling the plug on me with her own hands. The words "Mom is finally dead. Dad, you and Aunt Lin should get married soon" still cut through my heart like a knife whenever I recall them. In this lifetime, I will never repeat the same mistakes again. I washed up and changed clothes at lightning speed, heading straight for the military district. I had to retrieve it before the marriage report was approved. The military district gate remained solemn and imposing as ever, and the sentry stopped me. "Comrade, please show your credentials. I'm looking for Enzo Song from the 3rd Company. It's urgent." I pulled out the letter of introduction, my fingers trembling uncontrollably. Every second of waiting felt like torture. Finally, Enzo Song appeared at a jog, his military uniform crisp, with sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, still sporting that deceivingly handsome face. "Rear, what's so urgent that you had to find me?" He smiled gently, the same facade that had fooled me for 30 years in my past life. "Give me back the marriage report," I said bluntly. Enzo Song's smile froze. "What?" I said. "I want the marriage report back." I stared into his eyes, enunciating each word clearly. "This wedding is off." Enzo Song's expression changed abruptly as he reached out to grab me. "Don't be ridiculous. Did someone say something to you about Isla Lin?" "I can explain." "What is there to explain?" "That you and your comrade's widow share a deep bond." I sneered repeatedly. "Enzo Song, your comradeship sure comes at a high price." Enzo Song staggered back as if struck by lightning. "You? How could you think that way?" "Ha," I sneered, stepping closer, "because you would do exactly that." "Rear." Enzo Song suddenly raised his voice. "Isla is just the widow of a comrade in arms. I take care of her out of duty. Do you really lack even this basic compassion?" "Duty?" I nearly laughed through my tears. "Enzo Song, stop deceiving yourself. I'll step aside for you too. Just let me go." The argument drew many curious glances. At the end of the corridor, a tall figure emerged from the conference room, his epaulets identifying him as a regimental commander. He cast a sharp glance in our direction, his gaze piercing. "Is that Ford Cheng?" In my past life, he was Enzo Song's direct superior, a ruthless officer who rose through the ranks rapidly. I only met him a few times, but I still remember his piercing gaze when he looked at people. At that moment, his eyes lingered on me for 2 seconds before shifting away. For some reason, my heart skipped a beat. Enzo Song followed my line of sight, his expression darkening further. "You know Colonel Cheng?" "None of your business." I averted my gaze. "I must get the marriage report back today." Enzo Song gritted his teeth. "It's already submitted. Can't take it back." "Then withdraw it." I stood my ground. "Otherwise, I won't mind going to the political department to talk about your comradeship with Isla Lin." Enzo Song turned pale. Of course he was afraid. In his previous life, his promotion was blocked precisely because of conduct issues. "All right," he finally relented. "I'll apply to withdraw it today." I turned to leave but paused. "Oh, and tell Isla Lin to pay back the 320 yuan she owes me within 3 days, or I'll go to her workplace to collect it." Enzo Song widened his eyes. "When did she ever borrow money from you?" "Last year when her son was hospitalized, last month when her house was being renovated." I recounted meticulously. "Do I need to list out every single transaction for you?" The sky was a clear, pristine blue as I left the military district. I took a deep breath. Savoring the first taste of relief after my rebirth, This time, I will live for myself. Clutching the withdrawn marriage report, I stepped out of the military district gate. The summer sun blazed fiercely on my face, yet it left me feeling more clear-headed than ever before. 3 decades of suffering in my past life were finally severed completely at this moment. Just as I reached the doorstep, I saw my mother groping her way out of the main room. Her eyesight was poor, but her hearing was exceptionally sharp. I quickly stepped forward to support her. "Mom, I'm back. How did it go? Did you get everything settled?" Mother asked in a hushed voice, her fingers tightly clutching my sleeve. I nodded, then realizing she couldn't see, I spoke up, "Yes, I've got the marriage report back." Mother's body trembled as she sighed. "Your father went to the supply and marketing cooperative. When he comes back." "Oh, child, why do you suddenly want to break off the engagement? Isn't that young man Enzo's song quite good?" I helped her into the house and poured her a glass of water. "Mom, there are some things I can't explain to you in detail right now, but I promise, this decision is the right one." On the 8 Immortals table in the main room still lay the betrothal gifts the Song family had sent a few days ago, 2 pounds of brown sugar and a piece of Dacron fabric. In my past life, these things had moved me deeply, but now, looking at them, I could only feel irony. "My dear," Mother groped for my hand, "I'm not trying to interfere, I'm just worried. If word gets out about breaking off the engagement, how will you ever?" I gripped my mother's rough hand in return. "Mom, which is more important, reputation or life?" My words stunned my mother, leaving her speechless for a long while. I got up and returned to my room, rummaging through the bottom drawer to pull out a notebook. It was a ledger from my past life. Meticulously recording every loan given to Isla Lynn, relying on memory, I copied it all over again, down to the exact dates. 80 yuan, November 5, 1984, claimed her son was hospitalized with a high fever. 120 yuan, February 1985, said the old house was leaking and needed repairs. 60 yuan. The more I wrote, the more my heart grew cold. How could I have been so foolish in my past life? I scrimped and saved, reluctant to even buy new clothes for myself. Yet I freely lent large sums of money to that woman who kept insisting she was just a comrade in arms. Knock, knock, knock. The sound of knocking interrupted my thoughts. "Your father is back." Mother's voice came from outside the door, tinged with unease. I took a deep breath, tucked away the IOU, and stepped out of the room. Father was sitting in the wicker chair in the main hall, his face frighteningly dark. His health was poor, suffering from severe emphysema, and at that moment, he was wheezing heavily. "Dad," I called softly, "have you lost your mind?" Father slammed the table abruptly, causing the teacup to rattle loudly. "A good match like the Song family, and you just call it off? Do you have any idea how many people are eyeing this marriage?" I calmly walked up to my father and knelt down before him. "Dad, I know you're angry, but your daughter has no other choice. What kind of choice could drive you to do such a foolish thing?" Father coughed in anger. "Do you realize how our family can hold our heads up in the village after you broke off this engagement?" I raised my head and looked straight into my father's eyes. "Dad, if I told you that Enzo Song's heart belongs to someone else, and marrying him would only bring me suffering, would you still insist that I marry him?" Father froze. His coughing stopped abruptly. What did you say? He has a so-called comrade's widow named Isla Lynn." "Dad, you must have heard of her," I said with a bitter smile. "Enzo Song cares for her more than his own mother. Marrying into that family would just make me their unpaid maid." Mom's cane clattered to the floor. "That Isla Lynn, didn't her husband die at the border last year?" "That's her." I nodded. "Enzo Song keeps saying it's about taking care of a comrade's family, but in reality..." I didn't finish the sentence, but my parents understood. Dad's expression gradually softened as he reached out to pull me up. "Sweetheart, you can't make such claims lightly. Do you have any proof?" I pulled out the newly written list of IOUs. "This is the money I lent to Isla Lynn. Each transaction is well documented. Every time she borrowed money, she came to me through Enzo Song." Father took the note, squinted at it for a long time, then suddenly slammed it on the table. "Damn it. I'm going to the Song family to settle this right now." "Dad," I quickly stopped him. "Don't act in haste. We need to think this through carefully. First, return the betrothal gifts. As for the rest, I have my own plans." Father stared at me for a long while before finally letting out a deep sigh. My daughter, you've grown up. As we were speaking, a sudden commotion erupted outside the courtyard gate, followed by a sharp female voice. Rear GU, come out here. My heart skipped a beat. It was Isla Lynn's voice. Who is that? My mother asked nervously. It's nothing, Mom. You and Dad stay inside. I'll go check, I reassured her, patting her hand before walking alone toward the courtyard gate. Opening the door, Isla Lynn was indeed standing outside. Accompanied by a few curious neighbors, she was wearing a light blue polyester shirt today, her hair neatly combed, looking utterly pitiful. Rear GU, what do you mean by this? Her eyes reddened the moment she saw me. Why are you slandering me and Captain Song? I sneered. What exactly am I slandering you about? You've been spreading rumors everywhere about me and Captain Song having an improper relationship, even forcing him to break off the engagement. Isla Lynn wiped her tears. I'm a widow who's lived with integrity. How dare you tarnish my reputation like this? The neighbors around began to whisper, and the way they looked at me grew strange. The me from my past life might have been intimidated by this scene, but now, Isla Lynn, I leisurely pulled out the IOU from my pocket. Since you're here, you might as well return the money you owe me, $320, not a cent less. Isla Lynn's face instantly paled. What nonsense are you talking about? When did I ever borrow money from you? On November 5th last year, your son had a fever and was hospitalized. You borrowed $80, this February. You said your hometown house was leaking. You borrowed $120, last month. I listed each transaction one by one, my voice so clear that everyone around could hear every word distinctly. Isla Lynn's face turned red and then pale. You're spewing nonsense. Show me the IOU if you dare. IOU, I smiled faintly. Every time you borrowed money, it was through Enzo Song, saying you were too embarrassed to ask me directly. Now you're denying it. Isla Lynn trembled with rage. Suddenly turning to the onlookers, everyone, be the judge, she couldn't call off the engagement. So now she's slandering me, a widow like me, raising a child alone. Is it easy? The crowd began to point fingers at me. Just as I was about to retort, a deep, authoritative male voice suddenly came from the back of the crowd. I can testify that everything Comrade GU said is true. The crowd automatically parted as a tall figure approached. It was Ford Cheng. He wasn't wearing his military uniform today, but his upright posture and sharp gaze still made him instantly recognizable. Isla Lynn's face turned deathly pale in an instant. See Commander Cheng, how did you? Without even glancing at her, Ford Cheng walked straight up to me. Comrade GU, the military district has accepted your application to withdraw the marriage report. Here's the receipt. I've brought it for you. He handed me a document stamped with a red seal, then turned to the crowd. As Enzo Song's superior, I can say with full responsibility that his relationship with Comrade Isla Lynn has indeed exceeded the bounds of normal camaraderie. Comrade Gu's decision to break off the engagement is entirely justified. These words exploded like a bomb, leaving Isla Lynn pale and shaken. She opened her mouth as if to defend herself, but in the end, she said nothing and turned to push through the crowd, running away. The neighbors, seeing this, awkwardly dispersed as well. Thank you. Regimental Commander Cheng, I said sincerely, I didn't expect such a small matter to trouble you to come in person. Ford Cheng shook his head. No trouble at all. I happen to have a meeting in the county, so it's on my way. He paused, lowering his voice slightly. Isla Lynn won't let this go easily. Be careful these days. I was somewhat surprised that he would warn me about this and nodded. I will. Ford Cheng seemed to want to say something more but ultimately just gave a slight nod before turning to leave. Watching his retreating figure, I felt a strange sensation stir in my heart. In my past life, I knew very little about this iron-willed regiment commander, only hearing of his illustrious military achievements and that he never married. Now, it seems he isn't as cold-blooded and ruthless as the rumors made him out to be. Back in the house, my parents eagerly asked about the situation. I gave them a brief account, naturally omitting the part about Ford Cheng. It wasn't the right time to explain yet. Sweetheart, this whole mess. My father said anxiously, Isla Lynn definitely won't let it go so easily. Dad, don't worry, I reassured him. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Lying in bed at night, I tossed and turned. Ford Cheng's appearance today was too strange. Why did he help me? Was it really a coincidence? Or, my thoughts were interrupted by a noise outside the window. Alert, I sat up and heard rustling sounds near the courtyard wall. Quietly getting out of bed, I peeked through the window crack. Under the moonlight, a familiar figure was pasting something on my courtyard wall. It's Isla Lin. She's putting up a big character poster, furious. I was about to rush out when suddenly another figure emerged from the shadows and tore down the not yet secured poster. Comrade Isla Lin, what are you doing in the dead of night? It was Ford Cheng's voice. I was stunned. How could he be near my home? Isla Lin let out a terrified scream, and upon seeing who it was, she was utterly petrified. See Commander Cheng, slandering a soldier's fiancé will land you in military court. Ford Cheng's voice was as cold as ice. Go home now. Report to my office at 8 tomorrow morning. Isla Lin nodded shakily and stumbled away in a hurry. Ford Cheng stood still, looking up at my window. I quickly pulled back, my heart pounding like thunder. Did he see me? Or, when I looked outside again, the courtyard was empty, with only moonlight quietly spilling on the ground. The morning sunlight streamed through the window lattice as I got up early, burying last night's shock and confusion deep in my heart. Today, there was something far more important to do. Formally calling off the engagement with the Song family, Mother fumbled as she straightened my collar, her fingers trembling slightly. Sweetheart, are you really going alone? Let your father go with you. Mom, I need to settle this matter myself. I fastened the last button and carefully placed the withdrawn marriage application and betrothal gift list into the cloth bag. Father sat on the doorstep smoking, his cough intermittent. Old Master Song isn't an easy man to talk to. Dad, don't worry. I crouched down to meet his eyes at the same level. We GU family members aren't pushovers. As I stepped out of the courtyard gate, Aunt Wang from next door craned her neck to peek around. I knew last night's incident had already spread. Isla Lin being caught red-handed by Ford Cheng. This news traveled faster than the wind. The Song family lived in the military compound. After I showed my letter of introduction, the sentry gave me a strange look before letting me in. Just as I reached the building where the Songs lived, I heard the sound of things being thrown upstairs. You useless thing. Can't even handle a woman. Old Man Song's roar could be heard throughout the entire building. I took a deep breath and walked up the stairs. Just as I reached the door, I heard Enzo Song pleading in a subdued voice. Dad, please don't be angry. Rear GU was just confused for a moment. My hand, poised to knock, froze mid-air as the door suddenly swung open from inside. Enzo Song stood in the doorway, his military uniform crumpled, with dark circles under his eyes. Clearly, he hadn't slept all night. He froze for a moment before his face lit up with delight. Have you changed your mind? I took half a step back, avoiding his outstretched hand. I'm here to formally break off the engagement. Enzo Song's smile stiffened. Inside the house, Mr. and Mrs. Song rushed out at the sound of voices. With Mrs. Song still clutching a dishcloth, her face twisted in sarcasm. Well, if it isn't the high and mighty Miss GU, who's too good for our family. Ignoring her snide remarks, I handed over the cloth bundle directly. Here's the dowry list and the receipt for withdrawing the marriage application. Please review them. I've already packed up everything the Song family sent, and it will be returned this afternoon. Mother Song snatched the cloth bag away, flipping through its contents with an increasingly grim expression. Well, think you're too good for us now. Is that it? What part of my son isn't good enough for you? A country girl like you should be burning incense in gratitude for the chance to marry into our Song family. Mom, Enzo Song awkwardly tried to stop her, then turned to me with that gentle facade again. Let's talk inside. No need to make a scene out here. I stood my ground. No need. I came today to make things clear. From now on, we're free to marry whomever we choose. We have nothing to do with each other anymore. Mother Song trembled with rage. You must have found someone higher up, haven't you? I heard Colonel Cheng personally visited your home last night. So you've latched onto an even bigger official now. These words felt like a bucket of cold water poured over my head. I hadn't expected the rumors to spread this far. Nor did I anticipate Ford Cheng getting dragged into it. You should be responsible for your words. My voice turned icy. Regimental Commander Cheng was just doing his duty. As for your son, His questionable relationship with that widow, who in the entire military district doesn't know about it. You, Mrs. Song raised her hand, about to slap me. Enzo Song quickly stopped her. Mom, don't do this. He turned to me, his eyes pleading. Rhea, can we talk alone, please? Looking at him like this, the me from my past life would have softened, but now, I just find it ridiculous. Enzo Song, let's part on good terms. I turned to leave. Is it because of Isla Lin? Enzo Song suddenly shouted. I've already told you it's just camaraderie. Her husband died saving me. It's only natural I take care of her. I stopped but didn't turn back. Then marry her. Why drag me into this? The words stabbed into Enzo Song's heart like a knife. He staggered back 2 steps, his face deathly pale. Seeing this, Mrs. Song rushed over like a madwoman. Get out of here, you ungrateful wretch. Let's see what kind of respectable family would ever marry you. I walked downstairs without looking back, the sound of Mrs. Song's hysterical curses and Enzo Song's feeble attempts to dissuade her fading behind me. As I left the military compound, the sentry's gaze was full of pity. Apparently, Mrs. Song's voice was loud enough to be heard far and wide. The sky was overcast, and the distant rumble of thunder echoed. I quickened my pace toward home, my mind already calculating the next steps. Breaking off the engagement was just the first move. There was still a long road ahead to completely alter the fate of my past life. Halfway there, raindrops as big as beans began to pelt down. I hurriedly took shelter under a locust tree by the roadside, but the rain grew heavier, and the canopy offered little protection. Comrade GU, a large black umbrella suddenly appeared above my head, and the familiar voice made my heart skip a beat. Turning around, I saw Ford Cheng standing just half a step behind me, his military uniform impeccably straight, his features as sharp as if carved by a knife. Regiment Commander Cheng. I was too startled to move. How did you? I was just passing by on my way to a meeting in the county town, he said casually, as if it were truly a coincidence. But I knew the military district didn't take this route to the county at all. Raindrops trickled down the brim of his hat, a few clinging to his thick lashes, refracting tiny glimmers of sunlight. We stood so close that I could catch the faint scent of soap on him, mingled with the freshness of the rain. Thank you, I said as I took the umbrella handle. Accidentally brushing his fingers and pulling back as if shocked, Ford Cheng seemed not to notice the small mishap. He took off his military jacket and handed it to me. Put this on, don't catch a cold. Only then did I realize I was indeed trembling, not just from the cold, but also from the tense confrontation at the Song residence earlier. After a moment's hesitation, I took the coat and draped it over my shoulders. The warmth from the garment enveloped me, instantly dispelling the chill. I'll see you home. It wasn't a question but a statement. I nodded, and we walked together under the same umbrella in the rain. Ford Cheng deliberately maintained some distance, yet the umbrella clearly tilted toward me, leaving his left shoulder quickly soaked by the rain. You don't have to do this, I said sheepishly, trying to push the umbrella back toward him. No problem. Ford Cheng looked straight ahead, his voice low. Did the Song family give you trouble? I smiled bitterly. It was expected. Do you need me to step in? No need, I shook my head. It's already been resolved. After a moment of silence, Ford Cheng suddenly said, Isla Lin came to see me this morning. My heart tightened. What did she say? She admitted to posting the big character posters and also admitted to borrowing money without repaying. Ford Cheng said calmly, she promised to repay the debt in full within 3 days, on the condition that we don't report it. I looked at him in surprise. Do you believe her? I don't believe it. A faint smile finally appeared at the corner of Ford Cheng's lips. His first today, so I made her sign a written guarantee with her fingerprint. He pulled out a neatly folded paper from his pocket and handed it to me. Unfolding it, I saw it was indeed a repayment guarantee handwritten by Isla Lin, complete with a red fingerprint. My eyes suddenly grew warm. Why are you helping me? Ford Cheng didn't answer immediately. The sound of raindrops hitting the umbrella became the only background noise. Seeing injustice on the road, after a long pause, he finally uttered these 4 words. Yet I felt it was far more complicated than that. Turning a corner, I could see my house in the distance. Ford Cheng stopped. I'll leave you here. I understood he was worried about being seen and causing gossip, so I quickly took off my coat and handed it back to him. Thank you so much. Keep the umbrella. Ford Cheng took the coat but not the umbrella. You can return it another day. Before I could answer, he had already strode into the rain. I stood there, watching his figure gradually blur in the curtain of rain, my heart pounding wildly. When I got home, my parents were stunned to see me holding an unfamiliar man's umbrella. I briefly explained what had happened, of course omitting the part where Ford Cheng had specifically gone to find Isla Lin. Commander Cheng is really a good man, my mother sighed. But dear, he's a commander, and Mom, you're overthinking it, I said, my face flushing. He was just passing by and helping out. Father smoked his cigarette without speaking, but his eyes were thoughtful. In the afternoon, as I was preparing to pack up the Song family's betrothal gifts to return them, the courtyard gate suddenly rattled with knocking. Opening the door, I saw the village postman. Rear Gu, there's a letter for you. From the military district. He winked suggestively, clearly having heard about the morning's commotion. Puzzled, I took the letter and was even more surprised when I opened it. It was a money order from Isla Lin, a full 320 yuan, not a cent less. In the remarks section, a small line of text read, "Debt repaid in full. Please do not pursue further." I can't believe my eyes. What method did Ford Cheng use to make Isla Lin obediently return the money so quickly? Lost in thought, a commotion suddenly arose in the distance. I walked to the courtyard gate to look and saw a few children running past, shouting, "Hurry and see, Company Commander Song and the widow are fighting at the Supply and Marketing Cooperative entrance." What? After hesitating for a moment, I still followed the crowd toward the Supply and Marketing Cooperative. A circle of onlookers had already gathered at the entrance of the Supply and Marketing Cooperative. Through the gaps, I saw Isla Lin tugging at Enzo Song's sleeve, tearfully complaining, "You promised to take care of us, mother and child. Now everything is ruined. Ford Cheng is threatening to expel my son from school." Enzo Song looked embarrassed as he tried to break free. "Isla, calm down. Commander Cheng isn't that kind of person." "Not that kind of person." Isla Lin laughed hysterically. "For that bitch Rear Gu, he'd do anything. They've been involved for ages." The onlookers erupted in shock. Standing at the back of the crowd, I trembled with rage. Just as I was about to step forward and argue, a booming voice suddenly drowned out all the noise. "Comrade Isla Lin, mind your language." The crowd automatically parted as Ford Cheng appeared on the scene at some point, followed by two guards. His military uniform was impeccably straight, his expression stern, exuding authority without a hint of anger. Isla Lin wilted instantly, like a mouse that had spotted a cat. "See Commander Cheng." Ford Cheng swept his gaze around, pausing slightly when it landed on me before shifting away. "Spreading rumors and slandering military personnel carries legal consequences." Isla Lin's face turned deathly pale, her lips trembling too much to form words. Seeing this, Enzo Song stepped forward reluctantly. "Regiment Commander Cheng, this is a misunderstanding. Isla was just emotional." "Enzo Song." Ford Cheng addressed him by name, his voice icy cold. "Keep your comrade's widow in check. If there's a next time, writing a self-criticism will be the least of your worries." The words were harsh, effectively confirming Enzo Song and Isla Lin's improper relationship in public. Enzo Song turned ashen and didn't dare say another word. Ford Cheng turned to leave but suddenly paused, addressing the onlookers. "Comrade Rear Gu's decision to break off the engagement is a personal choice and has nothing to do with anyone else. Anyone who spreads false rumors will be considered an enemy of the military district." With that, he strode away. Leaving behind a stunned crowd and a pale-faced Isla Lin, I quietly slipped out of the crowd, my mind in turmoil. By doing this, Ford Cheng had publicly stood up for me. But he had also dragged himself into controversy. Why would he go this far? On the way home, I kept replaying every word and glance from Ford Cheng. In my past life, I knew almost nothing about this iron-willed commander, only that he had a glorious military record but never married. Now, it seems the vague image I remembered of him was quite different from reality. Just as I reached my doorstep, I saw my father squatting on the threshold, his expression grave. "Daughter," he said. "Someone just brought word from the county. Your aunt is ill and wants to see you." "Aunt?" I was taken aback. In my previous life, my aunt had indeed passed away around this time. Back then, I was preparing for my wedding and couldn't see her one last time. which became a lifelong regret. Dad, I'll leave first thing tomorrow morning, I said without hesitation. Father nodded, then started coughing again. Be careful on the road, I heard the county hasn't been peaceful lately, with fugitives on the loose. I was about to say something when I suddenly noticed a familiar black rectangle hanging on the courtyard wall. It was Ford Cheng's umbrella. When did it get hung there? I distinctly remember bringing it inside. Taking off the umbrella, I noticed a small note attached to the handle. If you need help, contact the military district switchboard and ask for the 3rd Battalion. The handwriting was bold and vigorous, as if hastily written with a fountain pen. Rubbing the note between my fingers, a corner of my heart quietly melted. At the break of dawn, I boarded the early bus to the county town. The bus was sparsely populated, and I sat by the window, clutching the medicinal herbs and change of clothes for my aunt tightly in my arms. I also brought Ford Cheng's umbrella, carefully tucked into a cloth bag, with the note from the handle slipped between the pages of my notebook. The car jolted along the rugged mountain road. The scenery outside the window gradually shifting from familiar villages to unfamiliar fields, gazing at the undulating mountains in the distance. My thoughts involuntarily drifted to Ford Cheng. His public show of support for me yesterday would undoubtedly bring him trouble. Although Enzo Song holds a lower military rank, he still has some connections in the military district. Miss, we've arrived at the county hospital. The conductor's shout snapped me out of my thoughts. The county hospital was even shabbier than I had imagined. A dusty 3-story building with severely peeling paint. The corridors were packed with patients and their families, the air thick with the mingled scents of disinfectant and sweat. Following the address my father had given me, I found the internal medicine ward on the 3rd floor. Pushing open the door to room 306, a heavy medicinal odor immediately assaulted my nose. 6 hospital beds were crammed into the small room, and my aunt lay on the one by the window at the far end. Auntie, I hurried over, my nose stinging with emotion. The plump, cheerful woman I remembered was now reduced to skin and bones, her face sallow, and 4-line inserted into her hand. Rear, her clouded eyes brightened slightly as she struggled to sit up. You really came. I quickly held her down. Don't move, just lie still. I set down my bundle, pulled over a stool, and sat by the bed. Dad said you wanted to see me. Auntie grasped my hand. Her palm was burning hot. Silly child, I was afraid if I didn't call for you now, it'd be too late. Auntie, my throat tightened. Don't talk like that, you'll get better. Auntie shook her head, then suddenly lowered her voice. Rear, I heard you called off the engagement. I was taken aback, not expecting the news to spread so quickly. Yes, it happened yesterday. Good, well done in breaking it off. Aunt unexpectedly slapped the edge of the bed. That Song boy isn't worthy of you. I looked at her in surprise. You know Enzo Song, image, more than just knowing. Aunt gave a cold laugh, then started coughing violently. I quickly patted her back, waiting for her to catch her breath before continuing. That guy accompanied Isla Lin to the county hospital last year for a checkup. I saw them hugging and clinging to each other around the corner of the hallway with my own eyes. I wanted to tell you back then, but I was afraid. My heart skipped a beat. So my aunt had known all along. If I had come to see her one last time in my previous life, would I have discovered Enzo Song's true nature earlier? Auntie, it's all in the past now. I comforted her softly. I'm doing well now. My aunt stared at me intently and suddenly said, I heard a regiment commander stood up for you yesterday. My face grew warm. How do you even know about that? Hospitals are full of gossipy people, my aunt said with a mysterious wink. What's the regiment leader's name? Ford Cheng, I answered softly, my heart inexplicably racing. My aunt suddenly widened her eyes and grabbed my wrist. Ford Cheng from the 3rd Battalion. I was startled by her reaction. Yes, what's wrong? Aunt let go of my hand and murmured thoughtfully, fate, truly fate. Auntie, do you know Commander Cheng? I asked curiously. Instead of answering directly, Aunt pulled out a small cloth bundle from under her pillow. Rear. This is for you. Inside the cloth bag was a jade bracelet, its entire body a translucent green, glowing with a warm luster under the sunlight. Though I knew little about jade, even I could tell this bracelet was of considerable value. This is too precious. I can't accept it. I quickly declined. Take it. My aunt insisted, forcefully pressing the bracelet into my hand. This was passed down to me by my mother-in-law, and now I'm passing it to you, remember. You must wear it at all times. Never take it off." I was about to say more when the hospital room door suddenly swung open, and a nurse walked in. "Family of patient in bed 306, please go to the first floor to settle the payment." I had no choice but to temporarily put away the jade bracelet. "Auntie, I'll be right back." A long line stretched at the payment counter. Standing at the end of the queue, I absent-mindedly pondered my aunt's strange reaction. She seemed to recognize Ford Cheng. And there was something about that jade bracelet. "Make way, emergency." A sudden commotion interrupted my thoughts. Several medical staff rushed in pushing a stretcher, on which lay an elderly man covered in blood. The crowd hastily parted to make way, and as I retreated to the wall, I suddenly spotted a familiar tall figure at the end of the corridor. Ford Cheng. What was he doing here? Dressed in casual clothes, he was speaking with a white-haired elderly military doctor, his expression grave. I instinctively wanted to go over and greet him, but then thought better of it. They seemed to be discussing something important, with the old military doctor visibly agitated, occasionally patting Ford Cheng on the shoulder. After paying the fee, I hesitated about whether to go over and say hello. Just then, Ford Cheng suddenly turned his head, his gaze directly meeting mine. He clearly paused for a moment, then said something to the old military doctor before striding toward me. "Comrade Jiu, what are you doing here?" Ford Cheng frowned slightly, his voice carrying a hint of barely noticeable concern. "My aunt is sick. I'm here to take care of her." I looked up at him, sunlight streaming in through the corridor window, casting a golden edge around his resolute profile. "Regimental Commander Cheng. How did you follow-up appointment?" he replied briefly, his gaze falling on the payment slip in my hand. "Having trouble with the medical fees?" No. I quickly shook my head. "It's all taken care of." Ford Cheng nodded, silent for a moment before suddenly asking, "You're taking care of the patient alone? Where are you staying at night?" "I'll just stay in the ward to keep watch." I smiled. "It's fine. I used to." Before I could finish, a nurse hurried over. "Regiment Commander Cheng, Director Li asked for you. Said the test results are out." Ford Cheng's expression changed abruptly. After hastily telling me, "Stay safe," he quickly followed the nurse out. Standing there, I watched his tall, straight figure disappear around the corner of the hallway, my mind filled with questions. Back in the ward, my aunt was already asleep. I quietly set down my things and took out the jade bracelet to examine it closely. In the sunlight, faint patterns seemed to emerge within the jade, resembling some sort of design, but they were too indistinct to make out clearly. "That's a mandarin duck," Aunt suddenly spoke, startling me. "Are you awake?" I put away the jade bracelet. "Would you like some water?" Aunt shook her head, her eyes fixed intently on the jade bracelet in my hand. "Rear, do you know the origin of this bracelet?" I shook my head. "This is the Cheng family heirloom," Aunt said astonishingly. "What?" My hand trembled, nearly dropping the jade bracelet. My aunt motioned for me to help her sit up. Leaning against the pillow, she began slowly. 20 years ago, my husband, your uncle, saved a company commander on the battlefield. To repay the kindness, that commander gave him a family heirloom jade bracelet." My heart pounded like a drum. "That commander, was his surname Cheng?" "Cheng Jigua," my aunt nodded. "Ford Cheng's father." I was so shocked I couldn't speak. No wonder Auntie had such a strong reaction when she heard Ford Cheng's name. Auntie grasped my hand. "Rear, this bracelet was meant to be passed down to my daughter, but unfortunately I never had children. Now that it's going to you, it must be fate." "But Auntie, this is too precious. And besides what?" Auntie's sharp gaze seemed to see right through me. "Do you think Ford Cheng is only treating you professionally?" My face burned, and I lowered my head in silence. My aunt sighed. "Silly child, if a man goes to such lengths for a woman, isn't his intention obvious enough?" Just as I was about to explain myself, the hospital room door suddenly knocked. Opening it, I saw a young soldier holding 2 lunchboxes. "Comrade Gu, Battalion Commander Cheng asked me to bring you food." The young soldier's voice was so loud it drew the attention of everyone else in the ward. I awkwardly took the lunchbox. "Thank you." "But Commander Cheng, the commander said you can find him in the first-floor surgical office if you need anything." The young soldier saluted and ran off, holding the lunchbox. I returned to the bedside. where my aunt wore an "I told you so" expression. "Eat up," she said with a smile. "Seems someone's even more eager than I am." The lunchbox contained fragrant braised pork and greens, along with a large bowl of rice. In those days of scarcity, this was practically a luxurious feast. I shared half with my aunt, but she only took a few bites before setting it down, her complexion growing increasingly pale. "Auntie, are you feeling unwell?" I asked worriedly. She shook her head and suddenly grasped my hand. "Rhea, I don't have much time left. There's something I must tell you." "Don't say such things. Listen to me." Aunt interrupted me. "Both Cheng Jigua and your uncles sacrificed their lives in that border conflict. Ford Cheng was only 16 at the time. Yet he resolutely enlisted to seek revenge. He and Enzo Song were in the same batch. But Enzo Song, well, in any case, you must be careful around Enzo Song." My heart trembled. "Aunt, how do you know all this? Your uncle's comrades come to visit me every year." Aunt coughed a few times. "That boy Ford Cheng has been stubborn since childhood. Once he sets his mind on something, nothing can change it. If he treats you well, it will be for a lifetime." My eyes grew warm, unsure of what to say. In the evening, my aunt's condition suddenly worsened. Doctors and nurses rushed in to perform emergency treatment, and I was asked to wait in the hallway. Helplessness and fear surged over me like a tide. I crouched in the corner, tears blurring my vision. "Rear Gu," a familiar voice sounded above me. I looked up to see Ford Cheng standing before me, his brow furrowed in concern. "Captain Cheng," I choked out as I stood up, but my legs had gone numb from crouching too long. And I stumbled forward. Ford Cheng steadied me with a firm, warm grip on my shoulders. "Take it easy, speak slowly. What happened?" "My aunt. The doctors are trying to save her." I stammered incoherently, tears streaming uncontrollably down my face. Ford Cheng's expression changed instantly. He released me and strode toward the nurse's station. I heard him identify himself and demand the hospital's full efforts in her treatment. Moments later, several senior physicians hurried over and entered my aunt's room. Ford Cheng returned to my side and handed me a handkerchief. "She'll be all right." I took the handkerchief, which carried a faint scent of soap, much like the smell that lingered on him. As I wiped away my tears, I noticed the bandage wrapped around Ford Cheng's right arm, with traces of blood faintly visible. "You're injured," I exclaimed. Ford Cheng calmly pulled down his sleeve. "Just a minor wound." "Was it from your follow-up appointment?" I suddenly remembered him mentioning a hospital visit earlier in the day. He nodded without saying more. We stood side by side in the corridor, waiting in silence. After what felt like an eternity, the door to the ward finally opened, and the attending physician stepped out. "She's stable for now, but the situation isn't optimistic." The doctor removed his mask. "The elderly patient's organs are failing. I'm afraid the family should prepare themselves." My legs went weak, and Ford Cheng swiftly steadied me. "Thank you, doctor. Please use the best medication available." The doctor nodded and left. Ford Cheng turned to me. "You can't stay here alone tonight. I'll make arrangements." "No need," I said hastily. "I can manage." "Really, you're still injured. You should go back and rest." Ford Cheng stared at me intently and suddenly said, "You're wearing the jade bracelet." I was taken aback and looked down at my wrist, only then realizing I had somehow put on the jade bracelet without noticing. The emerald green jade contrasted beautifully against my fair wrist. "Aunt gave it to me, said it was." I hesitated for a moment. "Said it was the Cheng family heirloom." Ford Cheng's eyes instantly grew complex. He gently touched the jade bracelet and said in a low voice, "This belonged to my father." "You knew?" I asked in surprise. "Yes." Ford Cheng withdrew his hand. "Director Lee told me you were here and also mentioned your aunt's identity." So that was it. No wonder he had suddenly appeared outside the ward. "Regiment Commander Cheng, this bracelet is too precious. I really shouldn't keep it on." Ford Cheng interrupted me. "It suits you well." Our eyes met, and a peculiar understanding flowed between us in the air. Just then, a weak call came from the hospital room. "Rear." I hurried inside, and Ford Cheng followed. When my aunt saw us entering one after the other, especially noticing the jade bracelet on my wrist, a relieved smile appeared on her face. "Regiment Commander Cheng," the aunt whispered weakly. Ford Cheng stepped forward and crouched by the bedside. "Auntie, I'm here. Take good care of her," the aunt said with difficulty. "This girl is stubborn." Ford Cheng nodded solemnly. Don't worry. My aunt looked at me again, her gaze gradually growing unfocused. Rear, be happy, Auntie, Auntie. I grasped her hand, only to feel the warmth slowly slipping away. Doctors and nurses rushed in once more to resuscitate her, but this time, my aunt never woke up again. At 3:27 in the morning, my dearest aunt closed her eyes forever. I knelt by the bedside, weeping uncontrollably. Ford Cheng stood silently behind me, steady as a mountain. The day broke, and Ford Cheng helped me handle all the funeral arrangements and even contacted the mortuary. I followed him around like a puppet, my tears already dried up. I'll take you home, Ford Cheng said to me after completing all the formalities. I shook my head. I have to wait for my father to come. He's been notified and will arrive this afternoon. Ford Cheng checked his watch. Right now, you need to rest. He took me to a small guest house near the hospital and booked a room. Dazed, I followed him upstairs, only snapping back to my senses when he pressed me down to sit on the edge of the bed. Get some sleep. Ford Cheng handed me a cup of warm water. I'll be next door. Knock if you need anything. Clutching the cup, I suddenly asked, why are you so kind to me? Ford Cheng stood by the window, sunlight streaming in from behind him, outlining his tall, straight silhouette. He remained silent for a long time, so long that I thought he wouldn't answer, because he finally spoke, his voice low yet resolute. You deserve it. Aunt's funeral was held 3 days later. Ford Cheng stayed by my side the entire time. From receiving relatives and friends to carrying the urn, he silently took on all the heavy and exhausting tasks. When my father saw Ford Cheng, he clearly paused for a moment but asked nothing, only gripping his hand firmly. After the funeral, my father had to rush back to the village to deal with urgent matters. Before parting, he pulled me aside and whispered, Daughter, Commander Cheng is a good man. Dad, my face flushed with heat, don't say such things. Commander Cheng is just what? My father rarely smiled. A high-ranking commander like him, putting aside his work to accompany you for 3 days. What does he want? I lowered my head in silence, the jade bracelet on my wrist glowing softly in the sunlight. Father sighed. Rear, your aunt called me before she left and told me some things. If Captain Cheng is truly sincere, don't push him away, let bygones be bygones. After seeing my father off, I stood dazed at the guesthouse entrance. Over the past 3 days, I had barely slept, and now I was utterly exhausted, yet unsure where to go. Back to the village. It was filled with gossip about my broken engagement. Stay in the county town. With my aunt gone, I didn't even have a place to stay. Comrade Gu, Ford Cheng's voice came from behind me. I turned to see him holding car keys. His military uniform impeccably neat, though faint dark circles under his eyes betrayed his lack of rest. I'll take you back, he said. I shook my head. No need, I can take the bus myself, not back to the village. Ford Cheng interrupted me. To the military district. I froze. The military district. Ford Cheng nodded. I've applied for temporary accommodation for you in the military family quarters. You can stay there until you find a new job. I widened my eyes. Is this appropriate? It is. Ford Cheng's tone left no room for argument. Isla Lin is still in the village. It's not safe for you to go back. Thinking of Isla Lin's underhanded tactics, I was indeed still shaken. But moving into the military quarters, would it cause trouble for Ford Cheng? Seeming to notice my hesitation, Ford Cheng added, it's applied for under the status of a military family orphan. The paperwork is complete, and no one will gossip. A military family orphan. Only then did I remember, my uncle was a martyr, so I indeed qualified. Ford Cheng had even considered this detail. Thank you, I said, my nose stinging as tears threatened to spill again. Ford Cheng frowned slightly, then suddenly reached out to gently wipe the tear from the corner of my eye. Don't cry, he said. His fingers were rough yet warm, and the moment they touched my cheek, both of us froze. He quickly withdrew his hand and turned toward the jeep. Get in. The military district was even larger than I had imagined. High walls, iron fences, and sentries standing guard everywhere exuded solemnity and dignity. Ford Cheng's car passed through without any hindrance and finally stopped in front of a row of red brick bungalows. This is it, he said, leading me into the one at the far end. The conditions are simple, but all the basic necessities are here. The room was small but clean and tidy. There was a bed, a wardrobe, a desk, and a chair. A potted plant on the windowsill even added a touch of vitality to the space. It's really good, truly, I said sincerely. Compared to the earthen houses in the village, this place was practically heaven. Ford Cheng nodded. The canteen is to the east. Serving meals at 6, 11, and 17 o'clock daily. The bathhouse is at the west end, with the women's section open on Wednesdays and Saturdays. He explained everything in meticulous detail. Like a worried old father, I couldn't help but laugh. Regiment Commander Cheng, you don't seem like someone leading troops, more like managing logistics. Ford Cheng paused, a slight smile curling at the corner of his mouth. Get some rest. If you need anything, come find me at the 3rd Battalion. He turned to leave when I suddenly remembered something. Wait, your umbrella. I quickly took out the black umbrella from my bundle. Ford Cheng took the umbrella, his gaze falling on the jade bracelet on my wrist, getting used to wearing it. Ah, I instinctively touched the bracelet. It's fine. Just worried I might damage it. Won't happen. Ford Cheng smiled unusually. It's sturdier than you think. With these words, he turned and walked away, his back as straight as a pine tree. I stood at the door, watching until his figure disappeared around the corner, then finally closed the door and let out a long sigh of relief. The days that followed were unusually quiet. Apart from going to the cafeteria for meals, I hardly left my room. Ford Cheng didn't appear again, but I kept hearing news about him from others. Commander Cheng is ruthless with his troops. They trained until midnight again yesterday. I heard the 3rd Battalion is competing in the military districts contest, and Commander Cheng is personally leading their training. Regiment Commander Cheng ate in the cafeteria today and polished off 5 steamed buns all by himself. These fragments pieced together a Ford Cheng I hardly recognized. Strict, unyielding, and unsmiling. A stark contrast to the man who held an umbrella for me and wiped away my tears on the morning of the 5th day. I finally mustered the courage to step outside. I wanted to thank Ford Cheng, not just for taking care of me these past few days, but also for the warmth he offered when I felt most helpless. The military district service store had limited supplies, but I managed to buy flour, sugar, and lard. Back in my dorm, I spent the entire afternoon working on the small coal stove and finally made a plate of my hometown specialty, crispy lard cakes. In the evening, I carried a food box to the 3rd Battalion's camp, only to be stopped by a sentry. Comrade, please show your credentials. Only then did I realize my recklessness. This was a military restricted area. How could I just waltz in? I'm looking for Regimental Commander Cheng. Could you help me notify him? I asked. Mustering my courage, the sentry eyed me suspiciously. Regiment Commander Cheng is in training and not receiving visitors. Just as I was at a loss, a booming voice came from inside. What's going on? A broad-browed, big-eyed officer stepped out, his shoulder straps indicating he was a battalion political instructor. Spotting me, his eyes lit up. Well, if it isn't Comrade GU, taken aback, I asked, you know me, of course. The instructor laughed heartily. Regimental Commander Cheng specifically mentioned it. I'm Wang Jiqiong, the political instructor of the 3rd Battalion. Are you looking for Commander Cheng? I nodded and raised the food box. I made some pastries and wanted to thank Commander Cheng. Pastries? Wang Jiqiong's eyes widened, and he immediately turned to shout inside, Old Cheng, come out quick. Someone brought pastries. I was so embarrassed I wished I could disappear into the ground. Soon, the sound of orderly running footsteps approached from a distance, and Ford Cheng appeared at the door with a squad of soldiers, dressed in training gear and drenched in sweat. He clearly froze when he saw me. Comrade GU. Blushing, I handed over the food box. I made some butter pastries, to thank you for taking care of me these past few days. Before Ford Cheng could react, Wang Jiqiong snatched the box away. Hey now, this is the good stuff, Old Cheng. You can't hog such a kind gesture from the lady. With that, he actually opened the box right there, and the rich, sweet aroma immediately wafted out. The surrounding soldiers craned their necks to look, some even swallowing saliva in secret. Ford Cheng frowned slightly, but his gaze softened. Thank you, try it and see if it suits your taste, I said quietly. Ford Cheng picked up a piece and took a bite, chewing carefully. Everyone held their breath as they watched him, as if awaiting some momentous verdict. It's delicious. Ford Cheng finally gave his 3-word verdict. which warmed my heart. Really, let me try. Wang Jiqiong couldn't wait to grab a piece and stuff it into his mouth, immediately widening his eyes in amazement. Wow, this is incredibly delicious, Comrade Ji. Your skills are out of this world. The other soldiers were eager to try as well, but hesitated due to Ford Cheng's presence. Ford Cheng glanced at them, then at me, and suddenly said, "Come on over, one piece each." The soldiers cheered and instantly surrounded me. The food box was emptied in no time, with everyone chiming in with praise. "Sister-in-law, your cooking is amazing. Commander Cheng is a lucky man. When will you make some more for us, sister-in-law?" My face turned crimson with embarrassment, and I waved my hands frantically. No, don't call me sister-in-law." Ford Cheng cleared his throat, and the soldiers immediately fell silent. He turned to me and said, "Thank you for the pastries. There's a drill with the 3rd Battalion tomorrow. Would you like to come watch?" Me. I looked up in surprise. "Millimeter. Ford Cheng nodded. "At the Western Training Ground, at 9 in the morning. Wang Jiqiong winked mischievously beside us. "Comrade Ji, this is a rare opportunity, our 3rd Battalion's exercise. Ordinary folks don't even get to see it." I pursed my lips and smiled. "All right, I'll definitely go." On my way back to the dormitory, my steps were so light I almost felt like flying. Ford Cheng invited me to watch the drill. Does this mean he might have feelings for me too? Early the next morning, I deliberately put on my most presentable outfit, a light blue Dacron shirt and black trousers, and styled my hair into 2 braids. The jade bracelet swayed gently on my wrist, as if cheering me on. Simple bleachers had already been set up around the training ground, occupied by many officers and their families. I found a seat in a corner and looked around curiously. The field was filled with various obstacles and targets, with several military green trucks parked in the distance. "Rear GU." A sharp female voice suddenly came from behind me. I turned around to see Isla Lin standing there, dressed in a flamboyant floral dress, her face caked with thick makeup. "What are you doing here?" I instinctively tensed up. Isla Lin sneered. "Shouldn't I be the one asking you that, a country girl who got dumped? How dare you come watch the drill?" People around us were already starting to stare. Suppressing my anger, I said, "Isla Lin, this isn't the place to cause trouble." "Oh, so now you're pretending to be civilized." Isla Lin raised her voice. "Everyone, be the judge. This woman failed to seduce my man, and now she's trying to flirt with Commander Cheng. How shameless can you get?" Amid the rising murmurs, I felt countless piercing gazes on me, making me squirm in discomfort. Just as I was about to retort, a booming voice suddenly came through the loudspeaker. "The drill is about to begin. All non-essential personnel, please leave the area." It was Ford Cheng's voice. I looked up toward the podium and saw him standing there in his crisp military uniform, holding the loudspeaker, his sharp eyes fixed in our direction. Isla Lin shot me an unwilling glare before swaying her hips toward the family section. I breathed a sigh of relief, only to hear the loudspeaker blare again. "Comrade Rear GU, please come to the podium." The entire venue erupted in murmurs. I froze in place, unable to believe my ears. It wasn't until a young soldier ran over to guide me that I snapped out of my daze and walked toward the podium under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Ford Cheng stood waiting for me on the steps, his expression grave. Nervously, I approached him. "Regimental Commander Cheng, I." "Sit here." Ford Cheng pointed to the empty seat beside him, his voice quiet but clear enough for those nearby to hear. "You'll have a better view." I sat down, flattered yet nervous, my heart pounding like a drum. The stage was filled with high-ranking officers, and as a civilian among them, I felt utterly out of place. Ford Cheng seemed to sense my unease and whispered, "Focus on the drill." At the sound of the command, the exercise officially began. The soldiers moved like tigers descending a mountain, scaling walls, crossing trenches, firing with precision, each action crisp and exhilarating. Ford Cheng occasionally raised his binoculars to observe and issued brief commands over the walkie-talkie. "Third platoon, watch the flanks. Second platoon, pick up the pace. Good, well done." His focused demeanor was particularly captivating, the heroic air between his brows making it impossible to look away. I secretly glanced at his resolute profile and suddenly understood why the soldiers held him in such high regard. This innate leadership quality couldn't be faked. Halfway through the drill, an unexpected incident occurred. A truck suddenly lost control while passing through an obstacle and veered toward the spectator stands. The crowd immediately panicked, with screams erupting everywhere. At the critical moment, Ford Cheng dashed down from the podium and shouted into his walkie-talkie, "Third Company, intercept now." Several soldiers lunged forward and managed to stop the out-of-control truck with their own bodies, with the crisis averted. Everyone let out a collective sigh of relief. Ford Cheng turned to me, a flicker of concern in his eyes. "Are you all right?" I shook my head, but then noticed his right arm. A dark red stain was seeping through the military uniform's cuff. An old wound had reopened. "Your arm," I exclaimed. Ford Cheng frowned and quickly pulled down his sleeve. "It's nothing." After the exercise, Ford Cheng was surrounded by a group of officers discussing tactics. I stood not far away, hesitating whether to approach and remind him to tend to his wound. Just then, Isla Lin appeared out of nowhere, blocking my path. "Feeling proud now," she said sarcastically, sitting on the podium. "Quite the spectacle, aren't you?" I couldn't be bothered to respond and turned to leave. Isla Lin grabbed my wrist. "Don't think you're something special just because you've latched onto Ford Cheng. He's only taking pity on you." I pulled my hand free, the jade bracelet glinting coldly in the sunlight. "Isla Lin, must you humiliate yourself in public? The one humiliating herself is you." Isla Lin shrieked, "A discarded shoe like you. How dare you, Comrade Isla Lin." Ford Cheng's voice exploded like thunder. He had somehow appeared behind us, his face dark with fury, spreading rumors and slander, disrupting military discipline. "Come with me to the political department," Ford Cheng said coldly. Isla Lin turned pale. "See Commander Cheng." "I was just..." "Now," Ford Cheng commanded with unquestionable authority. Isla Lin was led away in disgrace. I stood rooted to the spot, my emotions in turmoil. Once again, Ford Cheng had come to my defense. But would this pattern of behavior ultimately damage his reputation? As I was lost in thought, Wang Jiqiong approached with a knowing smile. "Comrade Ji, don't take it to heart. Old Cheng has zero tolerance for troublemakers who stir up gossip." I forced a weak smile. "Political instructor Wang, does Regimental Commander Cheng often handle things this way?" "What do you mean?" Wang Jiqiong was taken aback, then burst into laughter. "You mean publicly defending a female comrade? Ha ha ha, what a joke. Old Cheng is famously indifferent to women in the military district. You're the first one he's ever shown such concern for." My heart skipped a beat, and my cheeks burned. In the evening, as I was sorting through my aunt's belongings in the dormitory, someone suddenly knocked on the door. Opening it, I saw Wang Jiqiong holding an envelope. "Comrade Ji, Old Cheng asked me to deliver this to you," he said, handing over the envelope. "He has to write a drill report tonight and can't come in person." I took the envelope. It felt light and airy, and I had no idea what was inside. Wang Jiqiong mysteriously blinked and said, "Old Cheng also asked me to pass along that there's a cultural performance at the division auditorium tomorrow at 9 in the morning. You can go check it out if you're interested." "A cultural performance?" "Yeah, Old Cheng is going to give a speech on stage," Wang Jiqiong said with a meaningful look. He usually hates these kinds of events, but today he actually volunteered. Don't you think that's strange? After seeing Wang Jiqiong off, I couldn't wait to open the envelope. Inside were a note and a photograph. The note bore just a simple line, "Exercise photo, for you to keep as a memento." The photo captured today's exercise scene, grand and imposing. But what made my heart race was the back of the photo. Ford Cheng had written the date and his name in pen, with a small 5-point star drawn beside it. This iron-willed soldier actually had such a delicate side to him. I pressed the photo to my chest, feeling that flutter of excitement. Tomorrow, I would see him again. The division headquarters auditorium was even more impressive than I had imagined. A red carpet covered the floor, the lights were dazzlingly bright, and the front rows were filled with high-ranking officers, while the back was occupied by soldiers and their families. I found a seat near the edge and sat down, clutching that photo tightly in my hand, my heart pounding wildly. On stage, the girls from the cultural troupe were performing a dance, their red silk ribbons swirling beautifully, but I had no mind to appreciate it, my eyes constantly scanning the crowd for that familiar figure. "Next, let us welcome Comrade Ford Cheng." battalion commander of the 3rd Battalion, to deliver the training report, the host's voice suddenly rang out. I jolted at the sound and saw Ford Cheng stride confidently onto the stage. Today, he was dressed in a crisp formal uniform, his epaulets gleaming under the lights. His entire figure as straight and proud as a pine tree. The audience erupted into enthusiastic applause, especially the soldiers from the 3rd Battalion, whose clapping was thunderous. Ford Cheng stepped up to the microphone, his voice steady and powerful. Comrades, on behalf of the 3rd Battalion, I will report on our recent training achievements. His speech was concise and to the point, without a single wasted word. I stared at him in a daze. Noticing an unusual flush on his face and what seemed like fine beads of sweat on his forehead. Was it the heat from the lights, or, as I pondered, Ford Cheng suddenly paused, his brow furrowing almost imperceptibly. The fleeting expression was gone in an instant as he quickly resumed speaking. But I noticed his hand subtly gripping the edge of the podium, his knuckles turning white from the pressure. Something's wrong. I abruptly stood up, ignoring the surprised glances around me, and hurried toward the front row. Ford Cheng had just finished his speech, saluted, and turned to leave the stage. But his steps were unsteady. I pushed through the crowd and stopped Wang Jiqiong at the backstage entrance. Instructor Wang, is Commander Cheng ill? Wang Jiqiong looked surprised. How did you know? Old Cheng started running a fever last night. The medic said it's an infected wound and told him to rest in bed, but this stubborn mule insisted on coming. Before he could finish, I rushed straight into the backstage. Ford Cheng was sitting on a bench, head lowered, with a medic speaking beside him. Hearing the footsteps, he looked up and visibly froze when he saw me. Comrade Gu, his voice was hoarser than usual. I rushed to him in a few quick steps and, without a word, reached out to touch his forehead. It was frighteningly hot. You're burning up like this and still came to the performance. I was both anxious and angry, my voice trembling. Ford Cheng wanted to say something but suddenly broke into a violent cough. The medic quickly supported him. Regimental Commander Cheng, you must return to the hospital immediately. I'm fine. Ford Cheng barely managed to stop coughing but didn't even have the strength to stand up. I'll help. Wang Jiqiong had somehow entered as well, and together we supported Ford Cheng, one on each side. Ford Cheng tried to struggle, but I shot him a glare. Don't move, to my surprise. He actually stopped resisting and let us help him into the jeep without further protest. Along the way, his body temperature was alarmingly high, and his consciousness began to fade. He kept muttering tactical terms like 3rd Platoon, watch the flank and cover me. The military hospital was brightly lit. The doctor on duty took one look at Ford Cheng's condition and immediately arranged for an 4 drip. The nurses hurriedly helped him out of his uniform, revealing a horrifying wound on his right arm. A deep, bone-exposing laceration that had already turned red, swollen, and festering. I gasped, how could it be this serious? The military doctor sighed. Regimental Commander Cheng got injured during the drill the day before yesterday, after a simple bandage. He ignored it, and the wound got infected. As the nurse treated the wound, Ford Cheng was in so much pain that cold sweat poured down his face, yet he stubbornly refused to make a sound. My heart ached for him, and I took the initiative to wipe his sweat with a towel. When my hand touched his face, he suddenly opened his eyes, gazing at me intently. Rear Gu, he called softly, his voice weak yet tender. I'm here. I held his hand. Don't speak anymore, just rest well. Ford Cheng shook his head, staring at me stubbornly. I'm sorry for making you worry. These words made my nose sting, and I nearly shed tears. This iron-willed man, despite being so severely injured, was only concerned about causing me distress. After the 4 was administered, Ford Cheng finally fell into a deep sleep. The medic said someone needed to stay and monitor his temperature changes. Wang Jiqiong was originally going to stay, but I volunteered. I'll do it. You have training to lead tomorrow. Wang Jiqiong hesitated for a moment, then nodded. All right, old Cheng will be happy to see you when he wakes up. He lowered his voice. Comrade Gu. Old Cheng has never known how to take care of himself since childhood. In the future, I'll leave him to you. The implication in his words made my ears burn, but I didn't deny it. Late at night, the ward was left with only me and the sleeping Ford Cheng. Moonlight streamed in through the window. Casting a soft silver glow over his resolute face, I gently touched his cheek, seizing this first opportunity to gaze at him so closely and unabashedly. His eyelashes were long, casting faint shadows on his face. His nose was tall and straight, as if carved with a knife. His lips were slightly chapped but still beautifully shaped. As I was lost in admiration, Ford Cheng suddenly stirred uneasily, murmuring in his sleep, "Dad, don't go, it's a trap." I quickly grabbed his hand. Ford Cheng. Having a nightmare. Ford Cheng didn't wake up, but his brows were tightly furrowed, with fine beads of sweat on his forehead. Song. Can't be trusted. Retreat quickly. Song. Enzo Song. My heart skipped a beat. Could Ford Cheng's injuries be related to Enzo Song? Rear GU, hurry and leave. Ford Cheng's voice suddenly became urgent. Danger. His fingers tightly gripped my wrist with astonishing strength. I endured the pain and softly reassured him, "It's okay, I'm here, you're safe." Under my soothing words, Ford Cheng gradually calmed down, but still refused to let go of my hand. I tried to pull away slightly, but he only held on tighter, murmuring indistinctly, "Don't go." My heart melted, and I simply sat by the bed, letting him hold on. As the night grew deeper, my eyelids began to feel heavy, and before I knew it, I had fallen asleep with my head resting on the edge of the bed. In my drowsy state, I felt someone gently stroking my hair, opening my eyes. I found Ford Cheng already awake, gazing at me tenderly, his fingers still entwined with a strand of my hair. "You're awake," I exclaimed in delight, sitting up straight. "How do you feel?" "Still unwell." Ford Cheng shook his head, his voice still a bit hoarse. "Much better." He paused, then asked, "Have you been here the whole time?" I nodded, suddenly realizing our hands were still intertwined. My face flushed instantly, and I tried to pull my hand back, but Ford Cheng held on even tighter. "Thank you," he said softly, his sincere gaze making my heart race. You're welcome," I stammered in reply. "You've helped me so many times." Ford Cheng shook his head as if wanting to say something, but the sound of the door opening interrupted him. A nurse came in for rounds, and I quickly stood up to make way. After the examination, the nurse said Ford Cheng's fever had subsided considerably, but he still needed further observation. Once she left, the ward was quiet again with just the two of us, and the atmosphere suddenly turned somewhat awkward. "Are you hungry? Should I go get some food?" I broke the silence. Ford Cheng nodded. "Thank you for your trouble." I walked to the door when he suddenly called out to me, "Rear GU, Ford Cheng's gaze fell on the jade bracelet on my wrist. "This bracelet suits you very well." My heart warmed, and I smiled at him before leaving. The hospital cafeteria wasn't open yet, so I had to buy kanji and steamed buns from a breakfast stall outside. When I returned, Ford Cheng was already sitting up, leaning against the headboard and reading documents. Patients should rest properly. I snatched the documents away and set the breakfast in front of him. Surprisingly, Ford Cheng obediently put aside his work and started drinking the kanji. Watching his compliant demeanor, I couldn't help but laugh. "Regimental Commander Cheng, are you usually this obedient in the military too?" Ford Cheng looked up, the corners of his lips curling slightly. "Only if you say so." The words made my hand tremble, nearly tipping over the bowl of porridge. Ford Cheng seemed to realize what he had just said, his ears turning slightly red as he lowered his head and hastily drank his porridge. Just as the atmosphere grew delicate, the hospital room door suddenly swung open, and a familiar figure walked in, Enzo Song. Dressed in a neat military uniform and carrying a bag of fruit, he froze for a moment upon seeing me. "Rear GU, what are you doing here?" I instantly tensed up. "I'll take care of Captain Cheng." Enzo Song's expression turned complicated. He walked to the bedside and said stiffly, "Captain Cheng, I heard you were injured. I came to see you." Ford Cheng's expression instantly turned cold. "Thank you for your concern. I'm fine." Enzo Song placed the fruit on the nightstand, his gaze shifting between me and Ford Cheng. "You two are close." "None of your business," Ford Cheng and I said in unison. Enzo Song's expression darkened, a flash of malice flickering in his eyes. He lowered his voice and said to Ford Cheng, "Commander Cheng, there's something I'd like to discuss with you privately." Ford Cheng looked at him coldly. "Rear GU is not an outsider. Speak your mind." Enzo Song gritted his teeth and suddenly said, "It's about that incident at the border." Ford Cheng's gaze instantly sharpened like a blade. After a moment of silence, he turned to me. Rear GU, could you fetch me a thermos of hot water? I understood he was deliberately sending me away, though filled with questions. I nodded and left with the thermos. In the hallway, I deliberately slowed my steps and faintly heard Enzo Song say, "Back then, both your father and my father sacrificed themselves." But the truth, the rest was inaudible. By the time I returned with the water, Enzo Song had already left, and Ford Cheng's expression was unusually grim. What did he come to say? I couldn't help but ask. Ford Cheng shook his head. Nothing, just some old matters. Seeing the worried look on my face, he suddenly reached out and held my hand. Don't worry, I won't let him hurt you. Does this? He referred to Enzo Song. What exactly is the grudge between them? My mind was full of questions, but seeing how exhausted Ford Cheng looked, I couldn't bear to press further. At noon, the doctor came for rounds and said Ford Cheng was recovering well and could be discharged after one more day of observation. I breathed a sigh of relief, only then remembering that I hadn't returned to the dorm all day and needed to go back to change clothes. Take good rest, I'll come back to see you later. I packed my things and prepared to leave. Ford Cheng suddenly said, "Wait." He took out a craft paper bag from the bedside drawer. "This is for you." Curious, I opened it and found a stack of fabric ration coupons and a note inside. The note read, "I heard you want to open a tailor shop. These might come in handy." I looked at him in shock. "How did you know I wanted to?" "Wang Jiqiong said so." Ford Cheng shifted his gaze uncomfortably. "Your aunt mentioned it to him before she passed away." My eyes instantly welled up with tears. This man, lying on his sickbed, was thinking about helping me fulfill my dream. "Thank you," I choked out. "But this is too valuable. I can't accept it." Ford Cheng frowned. "It's not for free. When you open your shop, make me a shirt to pay off the debt." I knew he was giving me an easy way out, and my heart warmed to the point of burning. "Then it's settled. I'll definitely make you the most handsome shirt." Ford Cheng smiled, his expression so gentle I couldn't look away. Back at the dorm, I took a shower and changed into clean clothes, just as I was about to head to the hospital. There was a knock at the door. Opening it, I saw Wang Jiqiong. "Comrade Gu, old Cheng sent me to pick you up," he said with a smile. "He's been discharged and is waiting for you at home now." "Discharge? Didn't the doctor say he needed another day of observation?" Wang Jiqiong shrugged. Who could stop him? "He said he had something important to discuss with you." My heart skipped a beat, and I quickly packed up before following Wang Jiqiong. Ford Cheng's residence was a small bungalow in the military family compound, simple but tidy. When I entered, he was sitting at his desk writing something. Upon seeing me, he immediately stood up to greet me. "Why don't you rest a bit more?" I couldn't help but chide. Ford Cheng motioned for me to sit down, his expression somewhat grave. "Rear Gu, there's something I must tell you." I looked at him nervously. "What is it?" Ford Cheng took a deep breath. "About Enzo Song, and also the matter concerning my father and your uncle." My heart trembled. Was the past aunt mentioned on her deathbed finally about to be revealed? Ford Cheng's gaze fell on the jade bracelet on my wrist. "This bracelet was left by my father for your uncle. Back then at the border, your uncle saved my father's life." I gently stroked the jade bracelet, waiting for him to continue. "But in the end, neither of them made it back." Ford Cheng's voice was low. "Because someone betrayed them. Who is it?" My voice trembled. Ford Cheng's eyes turned icy. "Enzo Song's father." I gasped sharply. "So you and Enzo Song, not a personal grudge?" Ford Cheng shook his head. "But Enzo Song always believed I knew the truth, fearing I would expose his father's deeds. All these years, he's been targeting me at every turn." I suddenly understood. "So the reason you helped me was also because..." "At first, yes," Ford Cheng admitted frankly. "I knew you were the Gu family's daughter and wanted to repay your father's kindness. But later," he paused, his gaze softening. "Later, it wasn't about that anymore." My heart skipped a beat. Then why?" Ford Cheng didn't answer directly. Instead, he took out a metal box from the drawer, opened it, and handed it to me. Inside were neatly kept the wrapping paper from the butter cookies I made, the thank you notes I wrote to him, and the ticket stubs from the cultural performance. "These, I've kept them all." Ford Cheng's voice was as light as a feather. Rear GU, I've never done this for anyone before. Tears welled up in my eyes as all my questions found their answers. This man was expressing his feelings in the most awkward yet sincere way possible. Ford Cheng. I mustered my courage and looked straight into his eyes. Can I hug you? Ford Cheng froze for a moment. Then opened his arms wide. I threw myself into his embrace, feeling the strong rhythm of his heartbeat. His arms were warm and secure, like a long drifting ship finally finding its harbor. Rear GU, Ford Cheng whispered softly in my ear, I want to file a relationship report. I looked up at his earnest expression and nodded with a smile. Okay, at this moment, all the past grievances vanished like smoke. I knew a new chapter of life, a true beginning, had finally arrived. On the third day after submitting the relationship report, the entire military district knew about Ford Cheng and me being together. Unexpectedly, almost everyone was happy about it. Whenever soldiers from the 3rd Battalion saw me, they would cheerfully call me sister-in-law, and even the division leaders would nod kindly when they ran into me. That afternoon, I was sewing a shirt in the dormitory, made from navy blue cotton fabric bought with the fabric coupons Ford Cheng had given me. Fulfilling my promise to him, the stitches were fine and even, with special treatments on the collar and cuffs to ensure comfort and crispness when worn. Is Comrade GU here? Wang Jiqiong's resonant voice came from outside the door. I put down my needlework and went to open the door, only to see Wang Jiqiong standing there with a mysterious smile on his face. Old Cheng sent me to fetch you, said there's something important. What is it? I asked while picking up my coat. Wang Jiqiong winked mischievously. You'll know when you get there. Ford Cheng's jeep was parked downstairs, with Wang Jiqiong personally driving. After winding through several turns, they arrived at a clearing behind the military district's mountain. The view here was expansive, offering a panoramic overlook of the entire camp, with the setting sun casting a golden hue over everything. He's waiting for you over there. Wang Jiqiong pointed toward a large tree not far away. I walked over. My heart racing. Under the tree, Ford Cheng stood with his back to me, his posture as straight and firm as a pine tree. Hearing my footsteps, he turned around, dressed in a crisp military uniform, holding a bunch of wildflowers, yellow, white, and purple, clearly freshly picked. You're here, he said with a slight smile. His gaze gentle. I took the bouquet, the fresh floral scent wafting into my nose. What made you suddenly think of bringing me here? Ford Cheng didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took my hand and led me to the edge of the cliff. From here, the military camp under the setting sun looked majestic, with the distant mountains stretching endlessly. A breathtaking view. I often come here, Ford Cheng said softly. Whenever I have an important decision to make, I come here to think. I looked at him curiously. What important decision is there today? Ford Cheng turned to me and suddenly knelt on one knee, pulling out a small velvet box from his pocket. Rear GU. Marry me. The box opened to reveal a gold ring, simple and elegant in design, gleaming in the sunset. I covered my mouth as tears instantly welled up in my eyes. I know this is sudden, Ford Cheng's voice trembled slightly, but I don't want to wait any longer. I want to wake up to see you every day, to take care of you openly, to give you a home. Home. That word struck my heart. In my past life, I never had a real home until the day I died. I do. With a choked voice, I extended my hand. I truly do. Ford Cheng carefully slid the ring onto my finger, then stood up and held me tightly in his arms. His heartbeat was rapid and strong, transmitting through his military uniform, filling me with an indescribable sense of security. There's a good day next month, he whispered in my ear. Let's get married. I nodded, my tears dampening his shoulder. At this moment, all the hardships were worth it. On the way back, Ford Cheng held my hand tightly without letting go. Wang Jiqiong was driving in front, occasionally stealing glances at us through the rearview mirror, grinning from ear to ear. Oh, I have something for you. I suddenly remembered the shirt. It's almost done. Should be finished by tomorrow. Ford Cheng's eyes lit up. I also have something to show you, he said in a low voice. It's a plan for after we're married. I wrote it down. I looked at him in surprise. You actually wrote a plan? Ford Cheng's ears turned slightly red. About housing, work, and children. This hardened soldier had even planned this far ahead. My heart felt as sweet as honey, and I couldn't help but lean against his shoulder. However, the blissful atmosphere was shattered when we returned to the military base gate. A messenger rushed over. Regiment Commander Cheng. Urgent military orders. The division commander wants you at headquarters immediately. Ford Cheng's expression changed, and he said apologetically, "You go back first." "I'll be right there." I nodded and watched him stride away. Wang Jiqiong walked me back to the dormitory, comforting me. "Don't worry, it might just be a routine drill," but my gut told me it wasn't that simple. The wait lasted until midnight. I sat by the bed, the finished shirt neatly folded on my lap. Outside the window, the moon hung high, and all was silent. Suddenly, rapid footsteps approached from a distance and stopped right outside my door. "Rear GU," it was Ford Cheng's voice. Low and tense, I quickly opened the door to see Ford Cheng standing in the moonlight, his expression terrifyingly grave. "What's wrong?" My heart instantly tightened. Ford Cheng stepped inside, closed the door, and then spoke. "I have a mission. There's trouble at the border. Our battalion is leaving immediately, now." My voice trembled. "In an hour." Ford Cheng held my hand. "I'm sorry. The wedding might have to be postponed." I fought back tears and forced a smile. "It's okay. I'll wait for you to come back." Ford Cheng's gaze fell on the shirt, and he reached out to gently touch it. For me, I nodded and handed him the shirt. "Try it on and see if it fits." Ford Cheng took off his military jacket and put on the shirt. The navy blue color accentuated his tall and straight figure, with the cut perfectly framing his shoulders and waistline. He looked so handsome that I couldn't take my eyes off him. "It fits very well," he said softly. "Thank you." We stood facing each other, neither willing to break this final moment of tranquility. Eventually, Ford Cheng sighed and took out a stack of documents from his briefcase. "This is the post-marriage plan I've prepared. Take a look first." I took the document and flipped through a few pages casually, only to be instantly stunned. This was no simple plan. It was clearly a manual, from housing allocation to children's education, from household expenses to holiday arrangements. Every detail was covered, complete with annotations and revision marks. "How long have you been preparing this?" I asked softly. Ford Cheng looked somewhat embarrassed. "Since the day I met you." I could no longer hold back my tears. This man had already planned me into his life from such an early stage, and this too. Ford Cheng took out another passbook. "My savings, I'm entrusting them to you." I opened the passbook, and the number on it made my eyes widen. A full 5,000 yuan, in the 1980s. This was an absolute fortune. "I can't accept this," I quickly declined. Ford Cheng pressed my hand down. "If I don't come back, don't talk nonsense." I abruptly covered his mouth. "You must come back. I'll wait for you." Ford Cheng gazed deeply at me, then suddenly pulled me into his arms and kissed me. The kiss was urgent yet tender, filled with reluctance and promise. I responded until breathing became difficult. "Wait for me to return," he whispered in my ear. "I will." When I saw Ford Cheng off at the assembly point, the soldiers of the 3rd Battalion were already ready to depart. Wang Jiqiong spotted us and tactfully walked away. Ford Cheng embraced me tightly once more, in front of everyone. "Regiment Commander Cheng, it's time." The messenger came running to report. Ford Cheng nodded, gave me one last look, then turned and jumped onto the truck. The convoy slowly started moving, disappearing into the pitch-black night. I stood there until the last taillight vanished from sight. Back in the dormitory, I couldn't sleep all night, flipping through the post-marriage plans Ford Cheng had left behind. Every page was filled with annotations, some sections even revised repeatedly. In the chapter on children's education, he wrote, "I hope our child will be as kind and strong as their mother, but not endure as much hardship as she did." My tears soaked the pages. At the break of dawn, I was startled awake by a series of urgent knocks on the door. Opening it, I saw Wang Jiqiong, his face unusually grim. "What's wrong?" My heart instantly leaped into my throat. "Enzo Song has been reported." Wang Jiqiong lowered his voice. "Suspected of accepting bribes. He's under investigation now." I froze. "When did this happen?" "Last night, right after old Cheng left." Wang Jiqiong's expression was complicated. "The whistleblower was Isla Lin." "What?" I could hardly believe my ears. "She reported Enzo Song." Wang Jiqiong nodded. "Apparently, Enzo Song refused to help her son get a job. In a fit of anger, she exposed the bribery." I was too shocked to speak. "Those two who were so deeply in love in their past life that they could make my daughter pull the oxygen tube. Now they've turned against each other. There's something even more bizarre. Wang Jiqiong glanced around and lowered his voice further. Enzo Song insists that old Cheng framed him, and even said, "This border mission is a trap." A chill ran down my spine. What does that mean? Not sure. Wang Jiqiong shook his head, but before leaving, old Cheng told me that if he didn't report back within 3 days, I should have you go find Division Commander Lee. My legs went weak, and I had to grab the door frame to keep from collapsing. Had Ford Cheng sensed the danger all along? Then why did he still go? Political instructor Wang. I forced myself to stay calm. Do me a favor. I need to see Isla Lin. In the military district's confinement room, Isla Lin looked haggard, her usual arrogance completely gone. When she saw me, she froze for a moment before sneering. Here to laugh at me. How much do you know about Enzo Song? I got straight to the point. Isla Lin's smile stiffened. What do you mean by that? Was he planning to harm Ford Cheng? I stared intently into her eyes. Isla Lin's expression changed, and she suddenly burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, only worrying now. Too late. Ford Cheng is probably already. My heart nearly stopped. Already what? Isla Lin leaned closer to the iron bars, lowering her voice. Why do you think Enzo Song was suddenly reported? It was to stall the investigation team, to stop them from discovering the border intelligence was fake. I felt as if I had fallen into an ice cellar. You set a trap. Not me. Isla Lin shook her head vehemently. It was Enzo Song. He hates Ford Cheng for taking you away, and even more for Ford Cheng knowing about his father's betrayal of his comrades back then. I turned and ran, hearing Isla Lin's hysterical screams behind me. Rear GU. Save me. Enzo Song will kill me. When I found Wang Jiqiong, he was pacing anxiously in his office. I told him the information I had gotten from Isla Lin, and his face instantly turned deathly pale. I must report to Division Commander Lee immediately. Wang Jiqiong grabbed his hat and was about to leave. Wait. I stopped him. Does Ford Cheng know about this? Wang Jiqiong hesitated for a moment, then nodded. He had suspicions before setting off, but military orders are absolute. My world spun. Ford Cheng went despite knowing it might be a trap. That fool. I'm going to find him, I said firmly. No, Wang Jiqiong flatly refused. It's too dangerous. Then help me contact Division Commander Lee. I compromised. Division Commander Lee was a white-haired old general with eyes as sharp as an eagle's. After hearing my account, he remained silent for a long time before suddenly asking, "So you're Jiu Jigua's niece?" I was taken aback. "You know my uncle, more than just know." Division Commander Lee sighed. "I was the deputy commander in that battle back then." He stood up and walked to the window. "Ford Cheng's father and your uncle were both my closest comrades." My heart raced. Then Enzo Song's father, traitor, Division Commander Lee said coldly. He betrayed the marching route, leading the entire company into an ambush. I finally understand the feud between Ford Cheng and Enzo Song. This isn't just a simple personal conflict, but a hatred forged in blood and fire. "Commander Lee, Ford Cheng is in danger," I said urgently. Commander Lee nodded and picked up the phone. "Get me the border command center." Every second felt like an eternity as we waited for the connection. Finally, someone answered on the other end, and Commander Lee quickly explained the situation. After hanging up the phone, his expression grew even more solemn. "We've lost contact with the border for over 6 hours now." My blood ran cold. "But don't worry too much," General Lee reassured. "Ford Cheng is the finest soldier I've ever trained. He won't fall into an ambush so easily." "I need to go to the border," I pleaded once more. Division Commander Lee scrutinized me and suddenly asked, "The jade bracelet on your wrist, is it from the Cheng family?" I nodded. Indeed, a faint smile appeared on Division Commander Lee's face. "Cheng Jigua once said this bracelet is only passed down to the wives of the Cheng family." He stood up and made a decision. "I'll arrange a vehicle to take you to the border, but remember, no matter what happens, follow orders." 2 hours later, I boarded the military truck heading for the border. Clutching Ford Cheng's spare uniform and medical supplies in my arms, I silently prayed, "Please be safe, Ford Cheng. I never got the chance to tell you. Meeting you in this lifetime has been my greatest fortune." The military vehicle jolted along the rugged mountain road for an entire day. Accompanying us besides the driver were an elderly military doctor surnamed Zhong and 2 guards. Dr. Zhong, nearly 60 with graying hair, had been resting with his eyes closed throughout the journey. But as the vehicle passed a perilous cliff, he suddenly opened his eyes. "We're almost there," he said hoarsely, gazing out the window. "Ahead is where the ambush happened back then." I followed his gaze and saw jagged rocks on the steep cliff face, with a narrow, winding path snaking upward. The terrain was so treacherous it sent a chill down my spine. Was it here that Commander Cheng and the others lost contact? My voice trembled. Dr. Zhong nodded, his expression complicated. 20 years ago, Cheng Zhigua and Jiu Zhigua were ambushed here too. Jiu Zhigua, my uncle's name. My heart clenched abruptly, and I instinctively touched the jade bracelet on my wrist. Whether it was my imagination or not, the bracelet seemed slightly warmer than usual. As dusk fell, we finally arrived at the border camp. It was much more rudimentary than I had imagined. A few tents surrounding a bonfire, with a dozen or so soldiers patrolling back and forth with grim expressions. Division Commander Li sent us. The guard showed his credentials. "Any news about Regimental Commander Cheng?" A bearded officer walked over and shook his head. "The search team has already been dispatched, but the terrain here is complex, and it's a minefield, a minefield." My legs gave way, and I nearly collapsed. Dr. Zhong quickly steadied me. "Don't panic, kid. Old Cheng has a tough life in him." I was assigned to rest in a small tent. The guard brought hot soup and dry rations, but I couldn't swallow a bite. As night fell, the camp was left with only the crackling of the bonfire and the footsteps of the sentries. I curled up in my sleeping bag, clutching Ford Cheng's military uniform tightly, tears silently soaking the fabric. I don't know how long it had been when suddenly there was a commotion outside the tent. I sat up abruptly, hearing someone shout, "Found him! Found him!" Without even stopping to put on shoes, I dashed out of the tent barefoot, at the center of the camp. Several mud-covered soldiers were gathered around a stretcher. My heart leaped into my throat as I pushed through the crowd and rushed forward. The person lying on the stretcher wasn't Ford Cheng. It was Wang Jiqiong. His left leg was a mangled mess of flesh and blood, his face as pale as paper, but he was still conscious. "Political instructor Wang." I threw myself beside the stretcher. "Where's Ford Cheng? Where are the others?" Wang Jiqiong's eyes lit up when he saw me, and he struggled to sit up. "Comrade Jiu, how did you? Where's Ford Cheng?" I was practically screaming. Wang Jiqiong's eyes dimmed. "We walked into an ambush. Old Cheng covered for everyone and drew the enemy away." My world froze in that moment. A buzzing filled my ears, my vision blurred. I could only see Wang Jiqiong's mouth moving, but couldn't hear what he was saying. "Girl, girl." Dr. Zhong's voice finally pierced through the fog as he slapped my cheeks hard. "Snap out of it. Nothing's confirmed yet." I numbly let him help me into the chair and mechanically took the hot water. It was scalding, but I couldn't feel it. My mind was filled with Ford Cheng's parting words. "Wait for me to come back. Tell me the details," Dr. Zhong Jun said as he treated Wang Jiqiong's wounds. Wang Jiqiong endured the pain and spoke haltingly. "We went to the border outpost based on the intel, but were ambushed on the way. Old Cheng sensed something wrong and immediately ordered a retreat, but the enemy fire was too intense. He stayed behind with the third company to cover our escape." "Who were the enemies?" Dr. Zhong Jun asked gravely. "I'm not sure. They were in civilian clothes, but their tactics were professional." Wang Jiqiong suddenly grabbed Dr. Zhong's hand. "Old Cheng was shot. I saw blood on his chest with my own eyes, but he still insisted we go first. Shot, in the chest." Those words stabbed into my heart like knives. I couldn't hold back any longer. I rushed out of the tent, ran to the edge of the cliff at the camp, and sobbed into the dark night sky. "Ford Cheng, you liar, you promised you'd come back." I screamed at the top of my lungs, my voice echoing through the valley. The jade bracelet on my wrist suddenly became scalding hot. When I looked down, I was so shocked I forgot to cry. The bracelet was glowing. A faint green light emanated from within the bracelet, strikingly visible in the darkness. "This is..." Before I could react, Dr. Zhong's exclamation came from behind me. "The jade bracelet recognizes its owner." He had somehow followed me unnoticed, his eyes wide as he stared at my wrist. "Indeed. You truly are a Cheng family bride." "What do you mean, recognizes its owner? What's going on?" I asked in panic. Dr. Zhong pulled me back to the campfire and lowered his voice. This bracelet is a Cheng family heirloom. Legend says it glows when worn by the true bride of the Cheng family. He paused, then added, the last time it glowed was 20 years ago. When Ford Cheng's mother wore it, I touched the scorching jade bracelet, both startled and puzzled. But what does this have to do with Ford Cheng now? Listen to me, child, Dr. Zhong said with a grave expression. There's a legend about this bracelet. When a member of the Cheng family is in mortal danger, it guides their loved ones to find them. My heart pounded like a drum. You mean, it can lead me to Ford Cheng? Give it a try. Dr. Zhong sighed. It's better than just waiting here helplessly. We sprang into action immediately. Dr. Zhong convinced the camp commander to organize a 5-person search and rescue team, consisting of me, Dr. Zhong, and 3 border guards familiar with the terrain. The jade bracelet's glow flickered intermittently, like some kind of signal. Following its guidance, we advanced along the steep mountain path. The night was pitch black, and the flashlight could only illuminate a small patch of ground beneath our feet. After walking for what felt like an eternity, the bracelet's light suddenly intensified. Over there, I pointed to a narrow path almost completely hidden by weeds. The soldiers carefully cleared the way as we pressed forward with difficulty. Suddenly, the soldier at the front raised his fist, the signal to halt. There's movement, he whispered in a hushed voice. We held our breath and listened intently, hearing faint moans coming from ahead. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might leap out of my chest. Without thinking, I rushed forward. Under an overhanging rock, Ford Cheng lay covered in blood, his face frighteningly pale. His military uniform was soaked through with blood. His right hand still gripping a pistol tightly, but his consciousness was fading. Ford Cheng. I threw myself beside him, my hands trembling as I checked his injuries. There was a gunshot wound on his chest, still oozing blood, and his right leg was also injured. Fortunately, neither was in a fatal spot. Dr. Zhong quickly took over, skillfully treating the wound. He's still alive. Hurry, prepare a stretcher. While waiting for the stretcher, I tightly held Ford Cheng's hand, continuously calling his name. His eyelids fluttered slightly, as if trying to open but unable to. Hold on, please. My tears fell onto his face. Suddenly, Ford Cheng's lips moved slightly, and I leaned in closer to listen. Gu Shen. His voice was so faint it was almost inaudible. I'm sorry. Don't speak. I choked back a sob. Save your strength. We're getting you back right now. Ford Cheng seemed to want to shake his head, but didn't even have the strength for that. His hand moved slightly, pointing to his chest pocket. Carefully, I reached in and pulled out a small notebook soaked in blood. This is, give, to you. Ford Cheng's voice was faint as a whisper. I opened the notebook and found it was Ford Cheng's diary. The most recent page bore the date of the very day he had set out. If I don't make it back this time, Rear Gu, please remember, meeting you was the luckiest thing in my life. I wanted to give you a home, but now I'm leaving you alone again. I'm sorry. And, I love you. The handwriting was blurred by rain or blood, yet still legible. I could no longer hold back, clutching him as I broke into uncontrollable sobs. The stretcher finally arrived. The soldiers carefully lifted Ford Cheng onto it, and Dr. Zhong administered and 4 drip throughout the journey back. The return to camp felt even longer than the trip out, each second an agony. As dawn broke, we finally reached the camp, with limited medical facilities at the border. Only basic treatment could be provided before Ford Cheng was immediately airlifted to the military general hospital. I refused to let go of Ford Cheng's hand until the medical staff forcibly separated us. Family members, please wait outside. The operating room light stayed on for a full 6 hours. I sat trembling on the hallway bench, still clutching the blood-stained diary. Flipping through its earlier pages, I found my name on nearly every one. The butter biscuits Rear Gu made today were so delicious. I couldn't bear to finish them all and saved one in the drawer. The jade bracelet on Rear Gu's wrist looks so beautiful, as if it was custom-made for her. I want to file a love report, but I don't know if she'll agree. This iron-willed soldier actually recorded our little moments in this way. My vision blurred with tears, yet I couldn't bear to miss a single word. The operating room door finally opened, and the lead surgeon walked out with exhaustion written all over his face. The bullet has been removed, he's out of immediate danger, but due to excessive blood loss, he's still unconscious. Can I see him? I asked urgently. The doctor nodded. Not for too long. In the hospital room, Ford Cheng lay quietly on the bed, his face as pale as paper, with various tubes and monitors connected to his body, emitting rhythmic beeping sounds. I gently held his hand, that once strong and warm hand now frighteningly cold. I found your diary, I whispered softly. When you wake up, I'll tell you in person. I love you too. Ford Cheng showed no response, only the waves on the monitor proved he was still alive. In the days that followed, I stayed by his bedside without leaving for a moment. Dr. Zhong visited daily, bringing me updates from the front lines. Enzo Song has been formally arrested, and Isla Lin is under protection as a tainted witness. As for the ambush at the border, the investigation revealed it was orchestrated by foreign forces, but Enzo Song provided intelligence, making his crime even more severe. On the morning of the 7th day, as I was wiping Ford Cheng's face, I suddenly felt his fingers twitch. Ford Cheng. I held my breath, staring intently at his face. His eyelids trembled slightly before slowly opening. Those eyes I had longed to see, though still dazed, were unmistakably open. Doc, I stammered excitedly. Doctor, he's awake. The medical staff rushed over to examine him and confirmed that Ford Cheng was out of danger. After they left, the ward was finally quiet with just the two of us. Rear GU. Ford Cheng's voice was weak and hoarse. Are you okay? Even at a time like this, his first words were to check on me. Tears welled up in my eyes again. I'm fine, but you're not. Do you have any idea how worried I was? Ford Cheng wanted to raise his hand to wipe my tears but gave up due to weakness. I took the initiative to hold his hand and pressed it against my cheek. Did you read the diary? He asked softly. I nodded, my tears wetting his hand. Yes, I read every page. Then, the answer. Hope flickered in his eyes. I leaned down and gently kissed his pale lips. I love you, Ford Cheng. Once you're better, we'll get married. Not a single day more to wait. Ford Cheng smiled, weak as it was, but it was the most beautiful smile in the world. A month later, Ford Cheng was discharged from the hospital, still needing a cane, but the doctor said his recovery was going well. We returned to the military base and were welcomed like heroes, to our delight. General Lee specially approved our marriage application and even offered to officiate the ceremony. The wedding was set on Ford Cheng's birthday. There was no grand spectacle, just a simple ceremony and the blessings of our comrades. I wore a red chipao I had sewn myself, while Ford Cheng was in his military uniform, the medals on his chest gleaming. When exchanging rings, Ford Cheng's hands were still slightly trembling, but he insisted on putting the ring on me himself. Rear GU. From now on, whether in good times or bad, I will stand by your side until the end of my life. As I placed the ring on his finger, I softly replied, Ford Cheng, thank you for giving me a home. In this life and the next, I will always follow you. Amid the cheers of everyone present, Ford Cheng leaned down and kissed me. At that moment, the jade bracelet on my wrist glowed warmly in the sunlight, as if blessing us as well. After marriage, Ford Cheng was transferred to work at the division headquarters and no longer had to go to the front lines. We were allocated a small house in the military family compound. Though simple, we made it warm and comfortable. Every evening, Ford Cheng would massage my fingers, sore from sewing. Every morning, I would prepare a steaming breakfast for him. On weekends, we would visit my parents at the hospital together or take a walk to the back hill, having a picnic under the big tree that witnessed our love. A year later, our twin sons were born. Ford Cheng, the tough soldier, unexpectedly became a super dad, mastering everything from changing diapers to feeding and putting the babies to sleep. Watching him play with the children, I often think to myself, this must be happiness, right? All the hardships of my past life have become worthwhile because of meeting him in this lifetime. I finally understand that rebirth isn't about seeking revenge for the past, but about cherishing the present and embracing the future, and that Enzo Song who once made me miserable. I heard he and Isla Lin turned on each other, and both ended up in prison. As for my daughter from my past life, she will never be born in this lifetime. But it's okay, my two sons will receive double the love and grow up healthy and happy under the care of Ford Cheng and me. In the quiet of the night, I often watch Ford Cheng and the children as they sleep, gently touching the jade bracelet on my wrist. It no longer shines, but I know it will guide us to find each other again when we need it. Because love has always been the most powerful force.